So the next topic is something we are all interested about, is how to scale, because all what we do is linked to volumes. The higher volumes, the better. So it's about scale of the LoRaWAN solution with value on the ROI. And the person who will present this is also very famous in the IoT. It's Daniel Quant from MultiTech. So welcome, Daniel.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Famous in my own mind, anyway. So today, I wanted to thank everybody for coming. It's day 2 of the LoRaWAN live event in Orlando, and it's a real pleasure to see so many people here today. So as many of you know, MultiTech simplifies that connected product and service journey for our customers. And it takes us into a lot of different vertical markets and all the way up the technology stack. And what I wanted to show today is how our customers have crossed the chasm with LoRaWAN and where they've done that. And what has been that value? What has been the ROI that's made that happen? So I thought I'd start by introducing a few different vertical markets here. So quick serve restaurants, fast food restaurants, McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, we all got our favorite quick serve restaurant. There are literally hundreds of thousands of these restaurants around the world. So it's massive scale business. And it's about $750 billion in revenue right now, and it's growing very respectably. Another market that is an order of magnitude bigger than quick serve restaurants is food retailers. And of course, most of us live in urbanized environments. And so we go to supermarkets. When we're not eating at quick serve restaurants, we're buying our food in the supermarket. And companies like Walmart are a $660 billion company. I mean, that's huge. But the total revenue by global food retailers is almost $12 trillion, growing at 3% CAGR every year. These markets have been profoundly impacted by digital transformation. Better outcomes for their customers, more personalized engagement, non-traditional routes to market for delivery like Grubhub, Uber Eats, curbside pickup. And that digitization has worked its way into the back office, and we'll take a look at this in a moment. But a market that we perhaps all take for granted, which is, again, 3 times bigger than global food retailing. We all have to eat, right? But commercial global real estate, $33 trillion. I mean, we take this business for granted. Many of us in the audience today who come to LoRaWAN Live, we flew in here. And of course, that's a form of commercial real estate. Many of us work for large companies who have departments that do commercial real estate within the company. All the different campuses and buildings that we work for, like building insurance and banks and hyperscalers and so on. I mean, even now, today, presenting from you, we're inside the Lowe's Hotel at Universal Theme Park. This is commercial real estate. It's everywhere around you, and it's consuming almost 1/5 of the energy that is produced here in the United States. So let's have a little look at why LoRaWAN is crossing the chasm. Now, clearly digital compliance, which is really all about risk reduction, this is a key value proposition that has been delivered through LoRaWAN. Sustainability is also another massive value that LoRaWAN is bringing, reducing carbon footprints and pollution. And let's face it, if you can't monitor it, then you can't possibly measure it, can you? So it goes without saying that you've got to be able to collect that data and monitor it. Now, all businesses are looking to streamline their operations, and of course everybody thinks about reducing costs, right? But it's easier said than done. And we're clearly seeing now how labor shortages are really playing into technology evolution, and it's about having a more personalized customer experience, right? It's about offering better service level agreements, doing more with less. And why LoRaWAN? Well, LoRaWAN is a very open architecture. You can have public models, public deployments where perhaps you're doing tracking of food or goods across a territory, and you can always be connected into those assets. You can also do private networks as well. Private networks for maybe utility companies or supermarket chains. And although there are 170 countries out there today with public networks, which is really covering most all of the world now with companies in countries that are doing public networks, private networks are just everywhere. Tens of thousands of private networks for LoRa out there, and that's all based on that open architecture. And being a standards-based organization, that enables us, the members here, this broad ecosystem of membership, to be able to develop products with really great interoperability. And great interoperability means a much faster scalability of devices and infrastructure, less friction, quicker pace of deployment. So I'm going to look at a few examples now of how MultiTech and our customers have crossed that chasm and the kind of applications that have been driving the value here. So the first one that I want to look at is food safety and compliance, particularly monitoring the temperature of freezers and refrigerated units. And so this works particularly well in retail. I mean, increasing amount of floor space in retail is now being dedicated into the high value goods, sandwiches, eat on the go food, TV dinners, all the kind of higher margin products that are increasingly being refrigerated. And of course, if we had any doubt about the food that we was buying, fast food, retailers, if we had any doubt about the quality of that food, we'd never buy it, would we, right? So this is all about food safety. It's about brand management. So by taking fridges and making them smart, bear in mind there's about 90 million fridges out there, hardly any of them are smart. So by making them smart, by putting temp sensors in those fridges, you're able to dramatically reduce spoilage, typically up to 15%. And by having a simplified operations platform in every one of the stores, saves on average $10,000 a year. And at $10,000 a year per store, you can afford to put a lot of sensors in these refrigeration units, a couple of 3 gateways in a store, and there's a return on investment there easily within the first year. In this particular use case with the fridge freezers, we take a standard temp sensor that does temperature and humidity, and it gets barcoded into a platform, and the operator starts to see the data coming into the system. If they don't, they can use a little magnetic tag that forces the device to start sending temperature messages. As soon as they see it on the platform, they put it up into the refrigeration unit. We, the consumers, we never see it, but it's in there monitoring the inner core temperature of the food, right? So it's not just monitoring the fridge temperature, it's using AI in order to actually know what the inner core temperature of that food is. And remember, you can crank these fridges down as low as you want, but once you get past the optimum freeze level for that type of food, it doesn't preserve the food for any longer. It doesn't keep it any fresher. And of course, if you're above that limit, that's when you get less shelf life, and you risk more spoilage of food. Now, one of the key takeaways that we learnt from doing over 100,000 sensors into these retail and quick serve restaurants is how to make it a self-install. I mean, I think we'd all agree that we'd love this to be a professional install, but the reality is there's just too many stores to be able to create a quick delivery and a fast return on investment. This is about a self-install. And so as I highlighted, we've made this as simple as we can to be a self-install system. Part of that is having a standardized message protocol. We call it the MultiTech sub-gig protocol. It's a consistent message protocol across all of our devices. It's completely open, and it's now in many of the device repositories on network server platforms to make it super easy to ingest. Now, one of the lessons that we learned doing this in scale across many different countries now is that there's a massive energy saving component here. Typically, these refrigeration units are 2 degrees lower than they need to be. And we've seen plenty of refrigeration units that are 10 degrees centigrade lower than where they need to be. And when we ask to find out, why they're so low, minus 30 centigrade, we're told that overnight, if the power goes out and these fridges start warming up, it buys the facility management company time so that in the morning, when everybody comes in and they start seeing that there's a problem, that they can get there before that food has hit that temperature at which it gets considered as spoilage. So you can see how digitizing this means that those reports are immediately sent out. Nobody's cranking the fridge down just to hope that it keeps them to the next day. And that reduction in energy cost, those sustainability targets all get pulled in on this. So wasn't what was expected going in, but it's been a key reason for accelerating the deployments. Another use case I wanted to talk about is supply chain management. So coming out of the pandemic, we've all been affected by supply chain management, and it's no different in a quick serve restaurant. Cooking oil and the delivery of cooking oil is like the fourth utility: water, gas, electric, and cooking oil. If the cooking oil runs out in these quick serve restaurants, that's it, it's done. They got to shut the restaurant down. And they can't go to Costco and just buy a couple of gallons of oil or something to keep them going. This oil is very precise recipes, patented recipes. Companies like McDonald's have their own recipe of cooking oil. It's the recipe, it's the temperature, the quality of the potatoes. It's how they create that consistent experience of the best French fries in the business. So this is all about consistency again, and brand value. So these trucks, they come in with the cooking oil. There's a good tank, there's the used tank. They pump it in on one side, they suck it out on the other. Classic breadcrumb route. Every Monday morning that truck goes off, does the same breadcrumb route. Some of these quick serve restaurants have consumed almost all the oil. Other quick serve restaurants are only 30% down, but who the hell knows, because you just do the breadcrumb route and go service every location like you always did. And then at the end of the day, these trucks are coming back in, they're perhaps half full of good oil, and clearly that's not very efficient. With supply chain management issues and labor shortages, it's now become critical that this becomes a little bit more intelligent. So now with sensors monitoring, ultrasonic sensors measuring the depth of, how low down that cooking oil is, and then having that sent into a centralized operation platform has transformed the delivery. It's now going out to exactly the sites that need that cooking oil, and it's coming back empty. And that again plays into a lot of these sustainability targets, because it's now less workers, less truck drivers, then means that there's less trucks on the road, more efficiently going out to the sites on a just-in-time basis to make sure that they're always got an adequate amount of oil, and again, producing less carbon emissions. And there's a ton of other sensors around this as well. A lot of them are typically wired around the deep fat fryers, the hoods, and more of this is now migrating towards LoRaWAN, because it's a greasy business, right? So periodically you have to clean all of this equipment, and as they clean it, they invariably knock out wires, and the stuff isn't working as well as it should do. LoRaWAN being wireless, one less issue to worry about. And it's interesting that the owners of these fast food locations are franchisees usually, right? So they don't just have one store, they have 30, maybe 100 of them. And it's a portfolio that has value that they're trying to maintain. And so they have good stores, they have stores that don't perform so well. By digitizing more of these processes, we've realized and learned with the franchisees that it's a way to be able to monitor and replicate performance. We found out that, half an hour before quitting time, some of these machines and cookers and deep fat fryers are being turned off. Well, if you're coming home from work late one night and you need something to eat, on the way home, grab a burger, and it's been sat out for 20 minutes, and you eat that burger, now that's not the consistent brand experience that these companies are looking for. And that's why some stores do better than other stores. So by making all the stores more efficient and increasing that brand value and that consistency, that portfolio of restaurants that those franchisees own increases significantly in value. Another application that I'd like to highlight here is pest control. It's something that we perhaps don't always think about. It's a bit of a joke, right? The better mousetrap. But remember, the facility management companies that are out deploying these pest control solutions, they're not paid per scalp. They're not paid for every pest that they kill. They're paid to create a very harsh environment around a facility that stops that pest control from coming in. And the channel to market that enables these solutions is a consumables industry. It's about consuming chemicals into bait traps, and so on. And so, so digitizing this has been a paradigm shift. There's typical pest control companies visit once a week, maybe once a month. It's not that frequent. They're putting down wooden traps. They're looking for any sign of pests, because it's not until you catch pests that typically you have the regulatory approval to be able to start creating a really harsh environment with more chemicals inside and outside of the building. And by using a number of the partners that we had on the logos here, we were able, for a top 3 European retailer, roll out hundreds of stores in just a few weeks with a completely digital solution. It turned from once a week if you're lucky, typically once a month coming in, to a 24/7 response time. And of course, as a facility management and a service company, the biggest cost is manpower, right? And so by moving to a more digital solution in a labor shortage environment, they were able to reduce their cost by 60%. Now, we learned a lot about how to optimize battery, trading off, frequency of updates, heartbeats, this kind of stuff. But it was really about the antenna performance. Those pest control traps are always level on the floor, but the gateways might be up on the ceiling, horizontally polarized antennas, on the wall, vertically polarized antennas. So really making sure that that polarization and efficiency of the antenna always works no matter how the equipment is installed was a major learning point. And we also manufacture and design pest control traps for most of the leading pest control companies out there. And so a number of our traps now can actually give you a false real catch by just knowing that a creature has gone over that trap. You know, rather than, you know, guys cleaning up, you know, with a hose pipe or something behind the deli counter in the retail store, and then that water catches the trap and sends it off. That's a false catch, obviously, but we can now detect even false and real just by having known that a pest has moved over that trap. The last one I want to highlight is water leak detection and shut-off in commercial real estate. Anybody who's ever had water leaks, hands up if you had a water leak. It's a very distressing experience in your house. Yeah, I'm seeing a few hands go up, yeah, even the cameraman. And so water leaks on a personal level is very distressing, but it happens to be the second biggest insurance payout, second only to natural disasters. And so insurance companies, they don't want to be the bad guy that sells you an insurance premium and takes money off you, and you don't hear them until next year when their hand's out again. They want to manage the risk with you. They want to partner on risk management, particularly in commercial real estate, where again it's a model where companies don't own one building, but they might own 100, 1,000 buildings, you know, doing leased apartments or office space. And what we learn by putting in these water detectors, which go around piping, toilets, baseboards, even server rooms in retail locations where apparently the server room always happens to be right next door to the public toilets. So they wire the sensor around to make sure that if the water did start to come up, they could rescue their data before it gets drowned. But what we learned from doing all of this is that it has to be, again, an easy install. And the paradigm shift here is that leaks are detected in minutes and hours and responded to, you know, within hours and days. Whereas a lot of these leaks are not cataclysmic. A lot of these leaks are drips and drabs that happen over weeks and months with lots of mold and bacteria build up. And then when that tenant leaves the property, the next tenant can't move in. That affects utilization rates, and utilization rates is really the crux measurement of how commercial real estate makes money. We learn in this process that who is the buyer, right? You know, is the buyer the facility management company? Is the buyer the insurance company? Is it the building owner? And we initially was leading with the facility management company, but it really isn't. Facility management is all about reducing labor costs. That's their big cost in life. But the insurance companies, they rebid on this insurance every year. And of course, you know, when you own 100 buildings that are massive, you're looking for the best quote all the time. So by using leak detection sensors and systems, they're able to reduce that insurance premium down by at least up to 8%, which enables them to keep that high value business. We also learned that if you have one water leak, this isn't like lightning. If you have the first one, you're way likely to have the second and the third one. And this is where the insurance company then starts saying, if you want to continue this coverage, you need to put in these leak monitoring solutions. So to wrap up, there are a number of markets here that have crossed the chasm with LoRaWAN. Hundreds of thousands of units deployed, and we've only just scratched the surface. And in the short and to the mid-term of this market, It's all about aftermarket connectivity. It's about sensors that go in refrigerators. It's sensors that go onto cooking equipment in quick-serve restaurants. But as this business really crosses the chasm, everything becomes born digital. So all of those assets that have been built, like the refrigeration units, most of the curbside refrigeration units now have built-in LoRaWAN connectivity into them. So this market moves much more towards a born digital market. And this really aids the pickup of the technology, particularly by solution providers who bring those disruptive business models. MultiTech supplies communication equipment and designs communication sub-assemblies into loads of these different types of products. And with 100 million devices now shipped, we know what crosses the chasm and what withers on the vine. And what crosses the chasm is an industry standard based technology with a broader ecosystem of guys like you that are fast deploying technology that is interoperable and simple to use. So any questions? Come find me after the presentation. And if you're interested in refrigeration, we're doing a great panel in about 15 minutes here on this stage where we'll dig deeper on that use case. Over to you, Olivier.
Thank you.